This week and last week, I had a couple of conversations with real estate directors based in the UK and based in Japan. And both of them had the same question: was how is the market? Is the market down? Is now a good time to get deals? And the answer obviously is yes. Now it's a great time to get deals from a tenant's perspective. However, really, when you look at how the market is doing overall in New York City, which affected both of these brands, is you have to really understand that in New York City, there's probably 7, maybe 8 markets that are appropriate for national apparel companies or international apparel companies. Each one of these streets or submarkets are probably 6 blocks long, 7 blocks long, but really you're looking at 2 or 3 prime blocks is where everybody wants to be, or that are appropriate, or blocks that are appropriate for international brands. And so to discuss the health of a market, you really have to look at, just really each market has got 2 or 3 blocks, and how are those blocks doing. So when I look at New York City for a brand and evaluating a submarket, the first thing I look at is, are the corners leased? If it's 3 blocks long, there's 12 corners. Of those 12 corners, how many are leased? If they're empty or if they're vacant, it's usually a sign that the rest of the market, or the rest of that particular street, you're going to find a lot of availabilities. And the other important thing to look at is there a corner that's just recently been leased in the last 6 months? So if a corner has been leased in the last 6 months in today's market to a real brand for 3 to 5 years, it usually tells me that the rest of that market is going to slowly improve, maybe quickly improve, I don't know, or at least stabilize. The other thing that I look at in these 3 or 4 blocks is there's always sort of irregular space, whether the space is low ceilings, small frontages, irregularly shaped. Are those leased? In a very, very tight market, the worst stores and the best blocks will get leased. In today's market, you're usually not seeing irregular space being leased up so quickly. So I would look at that right away to see, if irregular spaces are leased, that tells you that that submarket is very strong. Sort of the last thing that I look at in trying to answer the question is it a good submarket or not? It's really sort of 2 things. Number one, is there a true experiential use in that area? So Museum of Ice Cream, the Harry Potter experience, the Disney store. These are things that are truly experiential, that's going to draw people to the area, that's going to take up a store that cannot be taken up by another fashion brand or apparel brand. Equally, the other thing I look at is, in those 3 or 4 blocks, are there stores where that particular brand only has 1 store in Manhattan? So Converse has 1 store in New York City, it's on Broadway and Soho. New Balance has 1 store on 5th Avenue in the Flatiron District. So you really look for those sort of gems where they occupy stores that other national brands don't take. I guess the last thing that I look at, or last thing I talk about, is whether or not stores are getting leased in the non-primary blocks. And if they are, that tells me that the pendulum or the fundamentals of supply and demand in real estate are really going to kick in at some point in time in the future. We just don't know when that is. So all this is really part of a larger dichotomy, a larger pendulum. But when speaking with international brands, this is sort of the first thing that really we have to discuss in the educational process on New York. So give me a call to talk further. Thanks.